What an honor it is for me as a basketball player to have the all-time great presenting me here tonight. It was so valuable to me as a player to see someone who had the same desire, determination, passion, and love for the game. Who knew that number 23 would be here 23 years later presenting me to the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame. MJ, you have touched so many people's lives, but none like mine. Thank you for being the best teammate. I will always cherish that, and I will cherish our relationship forever. Thank you.
So a little bit over a year ago, I made a video titled, "Are Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen still friends after the Last Dance documentary?" And for the most part, this has been a little bit of a secret. We never really found out up until today. Now, it's really important to preface this. Scottie Pippen, with respect to what the man's been going through, has been behaving a little bit erratically lately. And I'll tell you what I mean in just a moment. Before we get to the content, we just dropped merch, man. This casual t-shirt's the perfect thing to purchase for somebody that doesn't think Michael Jordan is the greatest basketball player of all time. In addition to that, make sure you're followed on Instagram and Twitter if you guys ever want to tip me off on any NBA news going on. And now that we get all that out of the way, cue the intro. Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? There's been a lot of things that have gone on in Scottie Pippen's life since the last time this man has entered the public eye. And if we want to go from least recent to most recent, probably the most famous thing that happened to Scottie Pippen over the past year is unfortunately pertaining to his personal life with Larsa Pippen. Now, we've made videos on Larsa Pippen and Scottie Pippen both on this channel and on TheFlightMike TV, but for the most part, what went down is Larsa Pippen was spotted pretty much having an affair with Malik Beasley. It was a very controversial situation. Malik Beasley's wife at the time decided to divorce him, and then shortly after, per TMZ, Larsa and Scottie decided to dissolve their marriage, and although they are no longer married, Larsa remains hopeful that she and Scottie will do what's best for their 4 beautiful children and jointly raise them with love and respect. She would like to thank everybody for their understanding and kindly ask for privacy from the media during this difficult time of transition for her and her family. My brother Jamari likes to call Larsa Pippen the queen of the streets, but that's one of the many things that went down for Scottie Pippen. So imagine getting divorced from your wife of almost 20 years, all this going down in the midst of a global pandemic, also while the Last Dance documentary just recently dropped. Then on June 25th, 2021, we heard of Scottie Pippen pretty much throwing shade at Kevin Durant, saying Kevin Durant, as great as his offense was, it turned out to be his own worst enemy because he didn't know how to play team basketball. He kept trying to go punch for punch. This was right when Kevin Durant lost to the Milwaukee Bucks, and to be honest, for the most part, I think he was right here. But then he starts bringing LeBron James into the picture, and this definitely is a great way to get under Kevin Durant's skin, saying, have you ever seen LeBron take a shot like that? He ain't gonna take that shot. He's gonna be smarter. He's gonna force a double. That's what KD wasn't able to do. Now, Scottie continued to say that KD can score better than LeBron, but has he surpassed LeBron? Nah. He tried to beat Milwaukee instead of utilizing his team. You see what I'm saying? And LeBron would have figured out how to beat them and wouldn't have been exhausted, and he may not have taken the last shot. LeBron ain't KD, and KD ain't LeBron. We made a video on this as well. Kevin Durant did clap back at Scottie Pippen, but a few days later, this is where things get a little wild to me. And I'm gonna try to tread carefully here because I wasn't there and I don't know the individual. But Scottie Pippen would then accuse his head coach, which he won 6 championships with, Phil Jackson, of being racist. And this occurred on the Dan Patrick show. Dan Patrick would say, by saying it was a racial move, then you're calling Phil Jackson a racist. Pippen says, I don't have a problem with that. Dan Patrick said, do you think Phil was? And then Pippen said, oh yeah. And this pertained to the 1994 playoff game between the Bulls and the Knicks when the score was tied with 102, and Scottie Pippen refused to enter the game coming out of a timeout. Pippen stayed on the bench in protest because Phil Jackson elected to draw up the Bulls' last second play for Tony Kukoc instead of him, and Kukoc went on to make the game-winning jumper. And Pippen said that he felt like this was an opportunity to give Tony Kukoc a rise. It was a racial move to give him a rise. After all I've been through with this organization, now you're gonna tell me to take the ball out and throw it to Tony Kukoc? You're insulting me. And look, man, I really try to tread carefully here, because in this instance, I'm beginning to think that, okay, something might be going on with Scottie. And this is me just feeling empathy towards the man. You have to understand this guy's gone through a lot over the past year, and it's continued to break down. We didn't even get to the meat of this video. But firstly, if you watch the Last Dance documentary, Scottie Pippen expressed regret for that moment where he was upset that Tony Kukoc hit that game winner. Now it looks like he's backpedaling here, and I guess it's because he feels like too many people are walking all over him. His wife Larsa earlier embarrassed him in front of the public eye. Now you have the Last Dance documentary that also went up that showed Scottie Pippen in this very low point in his career, which in the documentary he expressed regret, but now he's saying that the reason why Tony Kukoc got a game-winning jump shot drawn up for him was more to do with race than to do with each player having their own skill set. And I'm gonna leave that to you guys to determine for yourselves, because I personally think that's a bit of a stretch. That was a season where the Chicago Bulls didn't have Michael Jordan, and they needed to be a little bit craftier in order to hit game-winning jump shots. And I guess Scottie wanted to prove that he's the man, but in that instance, you need to draw up the best play possible to potentially make that run. And as a result, I really truly believe that this one moment in Scottie Pippen's career is what forever made him a sidekick as opposed to the main guy. He had an opportunity to show his leadership in that situation and hype up Tony Kukoc for hitting the game-winning jump shot, but instead he took it personally because he has ego and pride in not being allowed to take the jump shot. And that brings us all the way to this GQ article today, where Scottie Pippen called out Michael Jordan for The Last Dance, saying that he couldn't have been more condescending if he tried. Now, this is probably to promote his upcoming memoir, Unguarded, and we get a little excerpt from it, but take a look at this. On May 19, 2020, there was a text from Michael Jordan. He didn't reach out very often. It said, "What's up, dude? I'm getting word that you're upset with me. Love to talk about it if you have time." Scottie Pippen would hit Michael Jordan back and say, "Let's talk tomorrow." Now, Scottie admitted that Michael Jordan was right. I was upset with him. It was because of The Last Dance, the 10-part ESPN documentary about the Chicago Bulls' final championship season, which millions of people watched during the early weeks of the pandemic. The final 2 episodes aired on May 17th, and similar to the previous 8, they glorified Michael Jordan while not giving nearly enough praise to me and my proud teammates. Michael deserved a large portion of the blame. The producers had granted him editorial control of the final product, and the doc couldn't have been released otherwise. He was the leading man and the director. Now, a lot of people tend to forget this about The Last Dance, but the whole premise of The Last Dance was supposed to be how tumultuous that final season was with the Chicago Bulls. And it was supposed to show everything, warts and all. But if you also paid attention, there was some information given out that was kind of unnecessary. Stuff like the origin of Michael Jordan and what inspired him. Stuff like Michael Jordan's biography. Stuff like Michael Jordan when he was first drafted to the Chicago Bulls and how they were a traveling cocaine circus. And there was a lot more just centered around Michael Jordan than the entire team. Now, Scottie admits that he had expected much more, and when I was first told about it over a year earlier, I couldn't wait to tune in, knowing it would feature rare footage. But the problem was, according to Scottie, that Michael Jordan was determined to prove to the current generation of fans that he was larger than life during his day, and still larger than LeBron James, the player many consider his equal, if not superior. So Michael presented his story and not the story of The Last Dance, as our coach Phil Jackson billed the 1997-98 season once it became obvious that the two Jerrys were intent on breaking up the gang no matter what happened. ESPN would send links to Scottie Pippen for the first 8 episodes a couple weeks in advance, and as he watched the documentary at home in SoCal with his 3 teenage boys, he couldn't believe his eyes. Now, these are some of the scenes that pissed off Scottie Pippen in the first episode. Michael Jordan, a freshman at the University of North Carolina, hitting the game-winning shot against the Georgetown Hoyas in the 1982 NCAA championship game. Michael being drafted 3rd by the Chicago Bulls in 1984 behind Hakeem Olajuwon and Sam Bowie, talking about his hopes of turning the franchise around. Michael leading the Bulls to a comeback triumph over the Milwaukee Bucks in just his 3rd game. So there's a theme here. Scottie was upset about how this documentary centered around Michael Jordan as opposed to what it was supposed to be about, the 97-98 Chicago Bulls. Now, in the 2nd episode, there was a focus on Scottie Pippen's difficult upbringing and unlikely path to the NBA, but the narrative returned to Michael Jordan and his determination to win. I was nothing more than a prop, his best teammate of all time, he called me, and he couldn't have been more condescending if he tried. On second thought, I couldn't believe my eyes. A lot of time around the man, I knew what made him tick. how naive I was to expect anything else. Each episode was the same. Michael on a pedestal, his teammates secondary, smaller, the message no different from when he referred to us back then as his supporting cast. From one season to the next, we received little or no credit whenever we won, but the bulk of the criticism when we lost. Michael could shoot 6 of 24 from the field, commit 5 turnovers, and he was still in the minds of the adoring press and public, the errorless Jordan. Now here I was in my mid-50s, 17 years since my final game, watching us being demeaned once again. Living through it the first time was insulting enough. Now, if you remember at the time, there were reports of Horace Grant being very pissed with Michael Jordan in regards to this entire documentary. And Scottie Pippen doubles down on this, saying that over the next few weeks, I spoke to a number of my former teammates who each felt as disrespected as I did. How dare Michael treat us that way after everything we did for him and his precious brand? Michael Jordan would never have been Michael Jordan without me, Horace Grant, Tony Kukoc, John Paxson, Steve Kerr, Dennis Rodman, Bill Cartwright, Ron Harper, BJ Armstrong, Luke Longley, Will Perdue, and Bill Wennington. I apologize to anyone I've left out. To make things worse, Michael Jordan received $10 million for his role in the doc, while my teammates and I didn't earn a single dime. Another reminder of the pecking order from the old days. For an entire season, we allowed cameras into the sanctity of our locker rooms, our practices, our hotels, our huddles, and our lives. Pippen goes on to explain that John Paxson would send him a text saying that, "I want you to know I respected everything about you as a teammate. Narratives can be told, but I rely on my real experiences. I watched you grow from a rookie to a pro. Don't let others, including the media, define you. You are successful and valued, and I have always felt lucky to be your teammate." Eventually, Scottie begins to talk about how he feels towards John Paxson and how he felt like he was the Chicago Bulls mascot in 2010 when he was a glorified scout. Pretty much, man, this entire article goes in on how Scottie Pippen feels about the Chicago Bulls and on how he feels about Michael Jordan. Personally, I don't know. I could understand it being very frustrating to be Michael Jordan's sidekick, and I could really see how he's egocentric. I could also see how he's trying to prove to the younger generation that he was bigger than LeBron James back in his day. And to be honest, I also believe that, because as remarkable as LeBron James is, Michael Jordan took a sport and elevated it to a different stratosphere. And I can see how this all bothers Scottie Pippen, and I'm looking forward to seeing Michael Jordan's response if we even get one. Let me know in the comment section down below what you guys think about all this. Are you on Team Scottie or Team Michael? Aside from that, I'm your boy Mike, and I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.